Hey everybody, how's it going today? My name is John and I am your crypto security advisor. So, this is the third live stream that I'm doing. And so typically when I do these live streams, I think I'm boiling it down to about three, five different areas that I want to cover. And my goodness, it's been quite the week. I guess to start off the bat, I did a video, I think it was on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or one of the videos, where I was talking about doing too much work. And in that video, I described that unfortunately I had a coworker pass away, and it kind of took me by surprise, took everyone by surprise, really. And it was kind of a warning, a PSA, so to speak, on making sure that you don't work too hard, making sure that you're taking care of yourself, making sure that you come first, right? My philosophy is I'm a Christian. I believe in two things. I believe in loving God and loving others, in that order. And so loving God, that's a personal thing, right? But loving others is quite a different thing. And loving others means making sure that no matter how busy they are, that you help out, right? I was in a few meetings with this particular individual, and I decided that, you know what, this guy's not doing so well, so we are going to figure out a way to offload some of his work. Unfortunately, I was on to other projects and he passed shortly thereafter. But this is a warning. Do your work, do your due diligence, yes, definitely, but take care of yourself first, because without you, you can't do anything, right? And so that's just my warning there. Anyways, I wanted to get into a few more channel updates. So at the beginning of this live stream, you heard some new music. And actually, I developed that music. I'm now officially an EDM expert. I don't know. I'm a musician by trade. I've been doing music for almost 16 years now. Started with the guitar. I have a few guitars around here that you can't see at the moment, but you can see my my amplifier, my 2 amps right there. So yeah, it's been quite the adventure. And I decided, you know what, I want to dabble in EDM. I went to Vegas a couple times already in my life, and it's like, you know what, I want to try and harness that feeling of actually getting to Vegas and all that party scenes and the hangover phase of just staying up way too late, regardless if you're drinking or not. It's just, you're all in a daze, right? It's a dreamlike state. And I wanted to capture that in music. So I have a few tracks. So my first track is the before, and then you'll hear my last track on the EP. I'm calling it an EP. On my after little panel, so I'll share that after the stream. And then who knows, I actually have a break little screen as well, and I might share that too. There's 5 little tracks in total, and it was a fun project. I wanted to get into how far I can get into EDM. But anyways, I look forward to that, and it'll be on Spotify mid-October, hopefully, if everything checks out. The next thing I want to talk to you about is I am doing the crypto mindset course. So I believe it was last week I talked to you about the crypto mindset course. They were closing like a day or two afterwards, and so far we've had 3 or 4 webinars. It's been fantastic. However, it's a lot to take in, right? I've done a few of these already. However, each time you do them, there's more knowledge to gain, more insight to gain, not only from your community and what's going on in crypto, but also what's happening in the world. You want to take a generalist view, right? And then that provides the context of what's actually happening in crypto. And then you narrow it down as you go along. So that's been really good, really helpful. A lot of fun too, having a good time there. And if you missed out, tough luck, man. You got to wait until January or February for the next course. But again, if you need help with your cryptocurrencies or anything like that, securing it, I'm available for consultation, and you can just check the description below for that. One additional thing that I really want to dive into a little bit here, if you allow me to elaborate, is AI. So I haven't recognized until the past couple weeks how powerful AI is. And I haven't realized that this world is changing at such a rapid pace that I don't think any of us can really keep up anymore. So I've dabbled into the AI space, and actually I've now started to take AI seriously. And so anytime I'm doing anything with my business, I want to make sure I look at the broadest view possible. And what actually has happened is you have this institution called NIST. And NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, I believe it is. I just say NIST. Essentially, they create standards for the world. And so in cybersecurity, there's a NIST cybersecurity framework, and that establishes how you set up a cybersecurity program using their framework. It's a little complex, but they establish the boundaries on what you should be looking for, right? And so my company uses that framework, and they've also, at the beginning of this year, they have developed an AI framework. And so I dived into that the last few days, and my goodness, there's a lot in there. However, I am now adopting that into my company and actually having, spoiler alert, if any of you guys run a tech company or anything, I'm kind of giving away a little trade secret here, but that's, I'm here to provide value for those that pay attention. Essentially, I am spinning up a new AI program, an AI division, basing everything on this new framework. And I was going through this framework, and a lot of it has to do with ethics, funny enough. Like, right now we're using AI tools, so not necessarily developing the AI tools, we're using them to develop solutions, which is slightly different. And so I was going through this and setting up the program, policies, standards, whatever, and it's been quite fascinating. And so before we get into the crypto news, I want to briefly share my screen on this here. So that's crypto news. We'll go to here. So this is NIST, so National Institute of Standards and Technology. So I did get that right. And so very briefly, they have what's called an AI and RMF. So RMF stands for Risk Management Framework. And so anytime you're dealing with cybersecurity, you want to take a risk-based approach. How risky is it to do one thing over another? And so essentially they came up with this framework of govern, map, measure, and manage. And you can see that down here. And then you have the various controls. So making sure that you follow legal and regulatory guidance. There's a lot more here about third parties, risk tolerance, risk responses. And then if you go more into the, let's say, this one here, the socio-technical systems. So a lot of this framework deals with, well, what's the social impact? What is the societal impact of using these tools? Which I found very fascinating. So I'm dabbling in that. I've established my own program for this, for my company. And so any of you guys who are running your own company, just make note of this, right? This is essentially where the future is going. And I use these tools every day now. It's insane how great and how efficient and how awesome these tools are. However, there are a lot of concerns that you got to be aware of, such as what are the societal risks? What are the societal impacts? And from a cybersecurity perspective, making sure that you are segregating all your accounts when you have these, because who knows what goes on in the back end with these companies. So anyways, that is that. However, we should probably get into the crypto security news. So I will yet again share my screen. Then we'll go over to the article here. So Citadel Securities slapped with $7 million fine for a coding error. So this is quite interesting. So a bit of background. So I'm a software developer. I've developed quite a few applications, a full stack, everything from the database all the way to the front end and dealing with users, how to set up the infrastructure, let's say in a AWS or Azure, and securing it from the ground up and maintaining it, of course. And code is very interesting. A lot of times we'll have various tools and technologies to help aid us when we're coding. There's various frameworks we can use. There's a lot of different plugins that auto code things for us. Thank you to a lot of the ChatGPT stuff and AI once again, GitHub Copilot and the likes. However, all it takes is one little error to make massive mistakes. And I always go back to an article, I'm not going to pull it up right now, but an article where there was tens of millions of dollars spent, I believe it was NASA, you can look this up, but I believe it was NASA who wanted to shoot a rocket into space essentially. And what happened is it blew up. And the investigation concluded that there was a missing semicolon. You know, that little thing for punctuation that no one knows how to use? Yeah, in the code, it was missing that. And because within this millions and millions of lines of code, it was missing that one little thing, the rocket blew up. Fortunately, I don't believe any lives were lost, but this is why not only cybersecurity, but coding practices are very important. So, getting back to the article here, the coding error allegedly led to millions of mismarked orders over 5 years. Citadel has agreed to censure, penalty, and remediation in the settlement. So we'll just go over this here. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, has announced, or the SEC, has announced that Citadel Securities has settled charges of violating regulations, a law aimed at controlling short selling practices. This violation pertains to Citadel Securities' alleged failure to accurately mark sales orders as long, short, or short exempt. The investigation revealed a pattern of mismarked orders over 5 years, attributing these to inaccuracies to a coding error within Citadel Securities' automated trading system. Now, we can all speculate. Maybe this was, they knew about this and just didn't tell anybody, but yeah, you can make your own conclusions there. During this time, the firm mistakenly classified short sales as long sales and vice versa. Okay, that's a pretty big mistake, not gonna lie. I have no clue how that passed testing. Even more concerning to the SEC was that Citadel provided this erroneous data to regulatory authorities, including the SEC, without detection or correction. Citadel Securities 5-year error. So we'll just go down here. Citadel Securities opted for a settlement without admitting or denying the findings by consenting to a cease and desist order. The settlement terms include a censure, a penalty amounting to $7 million, and a series of undertakings aimed at rectifying the situation. And we'll just read down here. Trading revenue decline. In particular, Citadel Securities reported a significant decline in net trading revenue for the first half of the current year, marking a drop of 36% compared to the previous year. Despite this decline, the company continued to distribute substantial second quarter dividends totaling $500 million to its shareholders, including founders Ken Griffin. Citadel Securities has maintained a streak of generating at least $1 billion in net trading revenue for the past 14 consecutive quarters, as per insiders familiar with the matter. So, yeah, we might as well continue reading here. In June, Wall Street's giants, including Citadel, Charles Schwab, and Fidelity Investments, teamed up to invest in EDX markets. The platform facilitates the trading of widely recognized digital currencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin. The platform plans to enhance market efficiency further with the launch of its clearinghouse, EDX Clearing, later this year. So one little coding error, and things go bad. Things go wrong. So this doesn't necessarily affect the everyday user. However, we have to be aware that mistakes happen, especially when we have highly regulated industries, like the financial industry. And in my experience with the financial sector, a lot of these technologies are very old. They rely on very outdated technology because no one wants to touch it. As soon as someone touches it, things can go wrong. And when you're dealing with money, you don't want things to go wrong, right? However, I think what happened here was everyone took that philosophy, right? They developed it, tested it, right? Everything was fine. They did user testing, whatever, and unit testing, which I guess they must have skipped this one because this would have been found in unit testing, but I digress. A lot of times things go wrong and we got to be wary of it. And so we have to always pay attention to who are building these applications, who is behind these applications. And ultimately the responsibility is on us to determine whether we should be using a platform or not. And so this is where we do our due diligence, right? If I did our due diligence here, well, I wouldn't be shorting or longing to begin with. That's not financial advice. I stay far away from that sort of stuff. But oftentimes what you can do, looking back, is you can test this. Test it with like $5 or $10 or maybe $100 and figure out what's actually happening, right? Are you getting the expected results? Can you actually go through the process? And so this is where I want to transition to this new platform called Famous. And so Famous is actually a decentralized perpetual DEX, so a decentralized exchange built on Pulse Chain. And so that's a lot of words right there. So do your own research. I'll do my best to explain here. So it's a decentralized platform, so no one really owns it or controls it. It's a perpetual, and so it's dealing with money. And it's a decentralized exchange, so you can exchange different cryptocurrencies back and forth, right? And so this launched not too long ago, actually. And so as you can see, this is the platform. We'll get into it in a few minutes here. But you can see you have the Hex, so that's a cryptocurrency to USD. And so you can see the platform there. Apparently you can short and long, and there's a swap there. So we'll go into Fame, and we'll go to the dashboard here. So Fame is a brand new not ecosystem, but brand new platform available for use. And so what I am going to be doing is testing this. I'm going to take a very small amount of money and put it into this system, and I'm going to play around with it. What happens if I go here? And what happens if I buy Fame? What happens if I provide liquidity, right? I'm going to play around with this. I'm going to create a brand new test wallet for this. I'm not going to connect my main wallet, but a test wallet, just in case there are vulnerabilities on the system, as it is brand new, right? We always want to take the responsibility on ourselves and not others. If I go to the stats section, I believe this is just basically analytics. So I'm just going to briefly go through here, try to understand what's going on at a higher level, right? Understand what the platform is actually doing. Now, this is one platform. However, there's 3 other ones here that I want to cover. So we'll go to Fatty. And so Fatty is essentially, well, this is all your markets. And so it just has your prices in the Pulse Chain ecosystem, which I find is really cool, right? So you have your markets, you can set up your own portfolio, so you can track your portfolio. It has an option to watch the major whales in the ecosystem, or the wallets with the most assets. You can track them here. And actually, briefly, I just want to see what this is. Yeah, so it'll essentially, the community comes together and places these in. So you can see the Godwill wallets, the known dumpers, and etc. So you can go through there. And here I'll be playing around, just saying, okay, what's happening? And I guess on the right side, right-hand side, you have the social media feed, which is really cool. And then the rest of these are just links to the various platforms here. If we go to Fiat, Fiat is interesting. So it's essentially a lending and borrowing platform. And so, funny enough, there's a lending and borrowing platform on the ecosystem called Phantom, and it's called the Granary. And so I play around with that. And so once you understand how a decentralized platform works, it transitions to other ecosystems, right? And so I already know and understand the majority of this without even playing around with it, because I've already done something very similar on a different ecosystem. And so I might or might not put some money into this just to play around, right? And it's all education, right? The reason why we want to put money into things in the first place is because we want to invest in ourselves. We want to invest in our ability to do things, right? Without going to somebody all the time, right? And so this is where we invest in our education, right? There's various ways you can invest in your education. One of the ways, most common ways, is to go to college or university, right? That seems to be less and less the case nowadays. The next thing is you buy books, right? Go to the bookstore, you buy a $10, $15, $20 book, or you buy my book right there. And you take the time to read it through, and then you learn that way. Another way is YouTube. YouTube's a fantastic way, right? It's free to use, and you can find a lot of high quality content. However, you got to have the time to watch all of that, right? Then there's also audiobooks, but I think one of the most important things going into, I guess, this new modern world where we have AI and things are rapidly developing at such a rapid pace is sometimes we have to bypass all of that, the passive learning, to actually get very active. And so just diving right in with, let's say, $20, if you have that to spare, of course, right? You dive in and you figure out things as you go along. And I find that's one of the best ways that I learn, especially when these new platforms come out and with these AI tools that are coming out as well. So I encourage you to also consider doing that. So getting back to fiat. So fiat, you can see the various assets. So there's the market size. The market size is on the platform itself, I believe. And so, yeah, available for deposit. So you can deposit up to, so the whole ecosystem can deposit up to this much pulse, this much hex, right? And this is how much you can borrow, available to borrow. So for example, if I wanted to borrow some pulse, I would first have to deposit something as collateral. So I could deposit a number of various items here. So I could deposit hex at I'll get 1% APY back on that. But then if I wanted to borrow, I would borrow pulse at 5.33%. So this is kind of gets a little bit more technical. You kind of have to know what you're doing, but this is why we play around with these systems, right? If we go to my dashboard, you connect a wallet. I won't be doing that, but here, once you connect your wallet, you can now deposit assets. So let's say you wanted to deposit, just for simplicity's sake, 1,000 hex. Well, now it'll say 1,000 hex here. Available to deposit, it'll say like whatever, I believe it'll be like 1,000 or so, or whatever is available in your wallet. And then once you have deposited, you can actually borrow some of these. And so the reason why you may want to do this is because let's say you bought Ethereum at a fantastic price. Let's say you bought it at $800 on the last dip 6 or 8 months ago, and you don't want to sell it, right? But you also, it's kind of stuck. The capital that you have is stuck in Ethereum. You can't do anything with it, right? You're just waiting for it to go up in price enough that you can sell at your price point that you set earlier. Now, what you can do, this is very high risk, so do your own research, and this is not financial advice, but what you can do is simply go to a platform like this, deposit that Ethereum, and now you can withdraw liquidity from that Ethereum. It's high risk, like I said, so do your own research. And then, of course, they have this staking feature. And I got to play around with this. I'm not exactly sure what they're doing here, but again, I will be doing my own research on this one. And finally, last but not least, we have p-hux. For simplicity's sake, I will call it p-hux. And so this is where you have your liquidity pools. So you have official liquidity pools here, and you have community-based ones somewhere down here. So I was actually on a webinar with the founders of all of these different tools, and they explained it quite well. But I tend to avoid liquidity pools in this day and age because, well, that's not where I am heading for my goals. But feel free to play around, as I said, and get used to how these all work. So there we go. Just gonna pull up my my notes here. Wanted to cover that, and yeah, I guess just to reiterate one more time, when I was in Vegas, I was talking to an AI expert and a crypto multimillionaire actually, and he suggested that the way the world is going is that we are there's so much going on, right? Everyone's in a panic, the news is crazy, and we're just kind of here doing our best, right? We're doing our work, we're doing the work on the crypto side, but we also have our daily jobs, we also have family to take care of oftentimes, and we want to make sure that our social circle is also thriving, right? And that's a lot. So one of the best ways, instead of doing like your own research and reading articles and books that take a lot of time, right? And a lot of energy too. One of the best ways to learn is using what's called the Socratic method. And the Socratic method is essentially just start doing something. If you want to start learning how to, let's say, produce EDM music like I did a couple weeks back, you just start doing it, right? And that's where I got my 5 my 5-song EP from. You just start doing it. You don't really care about how it sounds, so to speak, but you get better over time. And so this is what I recommend for anything. If you are brand new in crypto, just start. Take like, I don't know, $50 or $100 and play around. Play around with the ecosystem. Learn how to get into the ecosystem, right? Learn what Bitcoin is. Learn what Ethereum is. And you just start doing. I find oftentimes in our society, we do paralysis by analysis. There's so much information out there that we're so inundated and so focused on, okay, let's read one more book or let's watch one more video. When instead, what we should be doing is, okay, I'll read a book, but along with the book, I'll be doing something. And that actually speeds up how we learn. And you do that for, let's say, 6 months to a year, maybe even 2 years. And lo and behold, we'll become almost like advanced in that whatever particular area, right? And so that's what I recommend people do. And that kind of transitions into the next topic I wanted to talk about, which is the book I'm reading right now. It's called The Obstacle is the Way. And I don't think I have it around me right now, but it's by Ryan Holiday. And so I'm about halfway through the book right now. And the way I read it is I take it a little piece by piece at a time, right? Anything I find something that's valuable or something I haven't thought of before, I'll close the book, take a step back and say, hey, you know what? What's actually going on here? And once I have mulled it over a little bit more, then I'll come back to the book and continue on. And I find that is a very valuable way of learning as well. And oftentimes when I'm dealing with a challenge, like today I've an emergency came my way and I still have to deal with it, but I have to do the work. I gotta put this live stream out, right? It's kind of frightening, this situation I'm in, and I didn't think it would happen like this, but I'm here and the obstacle is the way. This is my obstacle that I have to overcome. And future's uncertain for the next couple of weeks, but I am pushing in because that's what I do best. You push in and you take it one step at a time. And that's why I think reading this book has been so beneficial up until this point. It's like, oh my goodness. There was a story about a general, I'm going to butcher this, but just for generalization's sake, there was a story about a general who tried like 10,000 different ways of trying to attack this one city. And eventually everyone else gave up but himself. Even his commander was like, yeah, dude, you can't keep doing this. We're losing, right? But eventually he actually made progress. And he did something so unconventional and so creative that it actually worked. And so once you exhaust the first 10, 20, 50 things that come to your mind, you're forced to be creative about how to solve problems. And so when I'm encountering this problem right now, I did all the basic things that came to mind. Now it's like, okay, crap, now I got to think about more things that are a bit more esoteric or things that you wouldn't consider. And now we're going to be creative on how I solve this problem that came my way. And so just be open to being not only wrong, but open to new ideas, open to new processes, and question everything as well. Something that you think is impossible usually isn't. You just haven't thought of a good way around the obstacle, right? So anyways, I believe that's all I wanted to cover in today's live stream. I usually cover 5 topics, like I said. So we got the channel updates, the news, crypto security news, the launch of Famous and the various platforms. The obstacle is the way. And what is the last thing I want to talk to you guys about? Be cyber aware. I guess I'll conclude with that. So cybersecurity, what is it? It's going about life in a secure way. I talked about this in a previous video, but I'll just reiterate it here because I have you guys here. We lock our door because we don't want bad things happening, right? We lock our phones because we don't want people snooping. Same thing with our crypto. We want to make sure that we are diligent in where we store our crypto, who we tell about our crypto, what links are we clicking on, what ecosystems are we in? We want to be aware of everything that we are doing. And by doing that, we essentially have various layers in place. So it's called the security onion. So security is just basically a bunch of layers of security, right? If you have one very strong layer like a firewall, but if an attacker finds a way around that firewall and there's nothing else, you're hooped, right? So what you do instead is you have like a firewall, then you train yourself on making sure you avoid malicious websites, and then you make sure that you harden your devices, make sure that all of these different controls are in place so that if one layer fails, or even if multiple layers fail, that you are okay, right? I actually was in a situation when I first started my career where I downloaded a malicious file. I thought it was legit. I went through the process of installing it, of all things. And because I have certain security controls in place, all the other ones failed up until it tried to connect to a malicious server. Whatever I had in place at the time stopped that connection. And so it was like kind of the last line of defense that actually stopped everything. So stop the bad things from occurring. So you never know when you're going to need one of those layers, right? So anyways, that is all for today. I need to go solve this massive problem I now have. Ah, man, I've been suffering for the past 10 years and probably going to suffer for the next 10 more. But if you embrace suffering in a good way, you get results and you find success. So anyways, I will leave you with that, and I will put you on the, I guess, the closing remarks here, and listen to my last track on my EP. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was valuable, and I'll see you in the next one. And take care.